Wow. I literally just talked for like 3 minutes with the mic off. That's that's awesome. That's super cool. I can't believe I just did that. Very cool. Well, you can hear me now, right? I'm on now. I swear to goodness, I clicked the mute button when I started talking. Well, what you basically missed was the intro that I do every single week. Um, I'm not going to do that all again. I did the intro. I welcomed everybody. I let them know that my name is Jeremy Gerard and I'm an idiot. And I don't know how to operate a camera. So off to a great start. Can only go up for you from here, right? Positive attitude. As I was saying, I'm your host, Jeremy Gerard. I'm here every single Wednesday night doing Mythic Conversations. Thank you for hanging in through those 3 minutes of me silently miming this information. Hopefully we do have a fun show tonight. I am going to talk about my mouse kits tonight. I did cover the mouse kits some time ago on a previous episode when I talked about creating kits in general. And at that time, the mouse kits were fairly new, so I talked about them. But I know that there's a lot of people that have been asking me about them. We've got a couple new mouse kits coming out to WolfKingCustoms this Saturday. So I figured it was an appropriate time to look at them. And I've got all of my paint stuff set up. So I'm going to be doing some live painting on the ear tonight. That should be fun. Because I'm doing the live painting, I've got a slightly different setup. Paints are over here. Comments are over here, though. So when I'm looking at the comments, it'll be over here. That's why this time, because my camera's here, my comments are here. That's why when you were all saying, like, Jeremy, there's no sound, I didn't see you, because that was all over here. Let me see all the comments. Yep. Here we go. Woo! Best part of my Wednesday. And then we hear no sound. Uh-oh, no audio. Can't hear you. No audio. He's muted. And then just everybody
just telling me that I have no sound. I wonder, did anyone text me? Let's see if anyone texted me. You didn't even, none of y'all even texted me. You didn't even text me to try to get me. You just let me do that. Anyway, yes, I said some really cool stuff while I was on mute. I revealed all the secrets there. You guys calling exactly how long it was going to take me. Very cool. All right, so let's just dive right into it. I'm going to get past this. Mythic Legions news. Obviously, the pre-order for Mythic Legions All-Stars Trolls is still going on. Got a couple more weeks left in that. That ends towards the end of the month. Get in on that. If you saw the early show today, the Four Horsemen o'clock, they had some of the troll shirts. That was super cool. They also looked at the deluxe figures in the Alethea wave. So they looked at Alder the Moose, Farius, the Centaur. They looked at Phobos, which is Alethea's horse, and Disabolus, the vampire brute, the ogre scale brute. So they looked at all those. They did mention that a number of them, I believe Disabolus and Phobos, are actually on the water, on the way to us now. If you saw in the comments, they also mentioned that the Alethea Phobos 2-packs are also on the water. They're on the way. So those are following the 6-inch figures that shipped out a couple weeks ago. So we said that this wave is so large that it is coming in multiple containers. It couldn't have fit into one container regardless of if it's all ready to go at the same time or not. So there are multiple containers on the way. Another one is on the water now. So that's super cool. These are going to be showing up at the studio in the coming weeks. It takes anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks on the water. Customs, you never know. It could get through customs really quick. It could take, an extra week or so in customs. That's always a variable. That's always a challenge. But the good news is they're on the way. There is a process now. As we announced a few weeks ago, the summer of Legions is starting, where these things are going to start showing up. Orders are going to start to be processed. All those pre-orders, these are going to be appearing in our collections very, very soon. So that is super cool. If you want to see them go through some of those production samples, definitely check out the Four Horsemen's YouTube channel where Chris and George did that. One of the things they also mentioned was this coming weekend. There is a show this coming Saturday that is June 11th. The show is called Shop the Curiosity. So it's a new show. This is the first time they are doing it as such. It's our first time doing it as well. It's in Danbury, Connecticut. So I've never been to this area. I've clearly never been to the show because they've never done it. It is at a PAL building. So, if you know ToyCon is at the Wayne PAL. I imagine this is a similar type building. PAL means Police Athletic League. It's probably a similar type auditorium building. I genuinely have no idea what to expect. I don't know how large a show it's going to be. I don't know what kind of stuff they're going to have there. All I can tell you is that myself and Jim from Four Horsemen Studios will be there. So this will not be the entire studio. A lot of the shows we do, ZoloCon and ToyCon, we try to bring everybody out because of some conflicts in schedules and the fact that it's the first time we're doing the show. It is going to be a slightly smaller kind of studio presence. We are bringing a bunch of really cool stuff. Like I said, it's nothing brand new. You're not going to see Alethea Wave and stuff like that there, but there will be some cool products for sale. There will also be some stuff, some prototypes on display. Hopefully some of the stuff that they showed off today, they'll bring that down as well. And we'll have those there so you can kind of see them in person, snap some photos and things like that. And of course, I'll be there talking Legions. So when the show first starts, the line gets pretty crazy. I'll be pretty focused on, helping people. But as the line dies down, more towards the latter part of the day, certainly as I'm freed up, I'm happy to hang out and talk Legions and all that type of stuff. I'm not going to have customs or anything like that. There's none of that display. I'm literally there to work for Four Horsemen Studios, but that's more than enough, right? So that should be cool. 8 o'clock is early bird for the show. 9 o'clock is general admission. Show wraps up at 3 p.m. Hopefully, if you are in the area, I will see you there. Let's see. Eric is saying he did text me. Awesome. Other stuff going on. I've mentioned a few times about sales. So we had a really cool sale drop last week for Legion Shop. All of those orders are already on the way to you. People are hopefully starting to get those. Thank you very much. Another huge drop coming at the end of the month for Legion Shop. We split it up into two separate drops just because of the sheer volume of stuff that was coming in. We've got some very, very cool pieces. If you're not following, by the way, the Legion Shop Instagram page, definitely you should do that. It's at Legions Shop, all one word. Just make sure you got the two S's, Legions and Shop, two S's come together. We're always sharing cool stuff there. That's usually when we have new stuff and we want to show you new artists, things like that. That's always where we share it. It's very cool. We got a lot of new artists joining Legion Shop for this sale. We have parts from Curtis Ackerman, who I showed, I think, just today. Jesse Arnold's going to have some parts in there. Brian CA, I'm not sure, it's SEAY. CB Make is his Instagram page. I apologize if I'm saying your last name wrong, Brian. Brian, we dropped his whale and axolotl heads at the start of the sale this past week. We're going to have painted pieces of those from Jesse. So that's super cool. Brian from Duarte Studios, he's going to be in there. That's super cool. We're very excited for the stuff he's doing. He's doing the Orgonauts and the Juggler Dwarves. So a lot of cool stuff happening and a lot of cool artists coming on board. Very cool to be a part of that. We're in year 2 now, so we're foot's on the gas. A lot of great stuff coming. End of the month. WolfKingCustoms, they have a sale coming this Saturday. So this Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern time, they have a sale starting. And if you've been following their feed, they've got a bunch of cool stuff coming as well, including some of the stuff that I'm going to show tonight. So I'm going to talk about the mouse kits. We're going to paint one of the new parts, but there's some other stuff before I get into that I want to show really quick. So there's a couple pieces coming that I just think were very, very cool pieces, definitely worth showcasing here. One of them is this one here. So this is from Emil Wickman. So this is, I believe he calls it Shujin. This is his samurai type parts. I dig these. I'm a huge fan of samurai. I'm going to show some stuff tonight I've done in that. One of the things I really dug about this is it's super fantasy samurai. Like this is not authentic. Like this is not what a samurai looks like. But I dig that what Emil did was instead of trying to do like actual samurai parts, he kind of said, what would a Mythic Legions type figure that has a very samurai type influence look like? And I think he captured it here. I mean, if you know Emil's work, this is super Emil. Like this is very much, if you didn't know this was Emil and you saw this, you'd probably say, oh, that's Emil Wickman. Very much a kind of work that he does, but with that samurai-like influence. Very, very cool. So this is going to be available at WolfKingCustoms this coming Saturday. Another thing that I think is really, really cool, my friend Lord Steven, he's got a new kind of wave or a new series that he's doing. If you know, Stephen and Emil have worked together with the God's Fire series for quite some time now. Shujin the Samurai is from the God's Fire storyline. This other parts that we have here, these are from Stephen's new series he calls Tribal Lands. So he's got 2 different parts coming out. One of them is this head here that he calls the King of Athacor. So it's a really cool head. I like this a lot. Different type look. We don't have a lot of humans in the line that look like this. Arazak from the upcoming Pox's wave is probably the closest. But really the showstopper, I think, is this part right here. These parts, these are the Athacorian guards. And now, unfortunately, this one, I wanted to show this picture because it's painted. He does also have a shield and a mace that aren't in this photo. But what you can see is that helmet he's got and the shoulder armor, Really, really cool parts. I dig that, like that style with the fabric around it. Again, that's a historical type helmet that's been made kind of more fantasy like. I think that's super cool. So both of those parts are going to be available in this coming Saturday's sale as well. If you watched my show, the one I did live painting a little while back, where I live painted that like Viking dwarf, those those like dwarf skull heads, those are going to be available as well. From my own stuff, one of the things, the last Wolf King sale, what we did was we re-released the entire War of the Akupara wave. So all of the turtle parts that I had done, we re-released all of them all at once. And when we originally sold those, we sold them like a little bit at a time, like this head and the feet, and then this head came later. So being able to drop all of them at once, all the heads, all the weapons, that was kind of cool. That got a really good reception. So I'm doing that again, but with a different one of my series. This one is going to be called The Burrows of Woodhaven. So these are my rabbit characters. Again, I've released these all individually over time, but this is going to allow us to drop them all at once. So anyone that has been waiting for these to come back or wasn't around last time when they were available, this is your chance to grab them. And there's actually 4 different heads. These are the characters from the storyline. So speaking of samurai, there's the samurai bunny. Obviously, a lot of people use them to make Ugasaki, Yojimbo, to make those customs. I wanted to do a samurai rabbit, but not rip off that character, Stan Sakai's character. So, I knew that if I did a rabbit, people were going to use it for that. So rather than keep the ears up, I kind of did more of like a samurai type bun on top of the head. Still got that samurai rabbit type look out there without it, being as direct a copy of, his character. There's the more jackrabbit type, bigger head that looks great on 1.0. The standard head, that's like the most basic head that I call it, the brown one there. The black one, it's the same head as the brown one. That black one is one we sell at Legion Shop. And then over to the end here, we have the villain of the story, the monster, the Wappeltanger, which is basically very much like the American jackalope, I guess. There's like a German kind of character that is an amalgamation of different type of critters. It's got rabbits and antlers, and the custom I did has hooves and claws for hands. It's all over the place. It's kind of a fun part to do that type stuff with. But all of the burrows set, those will be available as well. And that's just a sample. There's a lot of other cool stuff that's going to be there, including the mouse kits. So that's what I'm going to talk about for the rest of the show. Before I do so, I'm going to check the questions just to see the comments, just to see if there's anything that I can answer. Let's see. Reminds me of the Star Wars Samurai line, Curtis said. Yeah, that's a super cool line. Got that feel as well. I mean, that's a good example of them kind of mixing that very, Ronin type feel with those iconic Star Wars character designs. A lot of people reminds me of Ming. Yeah, the King of Athacor has a very Ming the Merciless type look. I totally agree. Looking forward to the sale. Let's see. Someone says I live in Woodhaven, Queens. I didn't even know Woodhaven was a real place. That's funny. That Woodhaven, that's the kind of mystical land of critters that I've kind of created for all of these characters. And it actually dates back. The first ones we ever did were the Kitsune, as everyone knows. The second ones that came out were the Badger and the Wolverine, which I showed one of those the other day as well, because there's new kind of critter claws coming out from a meal that work great with the Badger and the Wolverine. But when we released those, we released them under the banner of the Coliseum at Woodhaven. And we imagined Woodhaven being this kind of anthropomorphic type community where all these characters live. I didn't even realize there was one in New York. That's awesome. Fantasy Watership Down. Yeah, it's interesting. the Burrows of Woodhaven, a lot of people compare it to Watership Down. I hadn't seen Watership Down actually when I created those, or read it, I should say. It's book first. I have seen the show since, and while the parts weren't initially inspired by Watership Down, the Black Rabbit is. So in Watership Down, the character of Death is the Black Rabbit. So that Black Rabbit character that's part of my storyline is very much inspired by Watership Down and their Black Rabbit as well. Will Mythic Legions eventually go east and have some samurais introduced into the line? I don't know if they'll be pure samurais, but we have spoken in the past about bringing other kind of cultural influences in, not necessarily in a super obvious way that we're just trying to introduce other cultures, but similar to the Templars, right? Or even the Mercurians. The Mercurians are a great example because they very much have a Spartan-like feel without being Spartans. They're not historical looks at the Spartan type, warriors, what they look like. So you might see stuff like that where there's more influences from other armors and other cultures and things like that, but spun to have a bit more of that kind of mythic feel to it. I've never watched the Plague Dogs. I've never heard of it. Does Mythic Samurai have a katana? Do you mean the one I just showed, Sujin? Yes, he does have. Emil did do a sword as well. A katana is like more of the straight blade versus the curved one, right? It is a straight blade. And the cool thing too is the shoulder arm. I don't have a picture of it, but the shoulder armor he has integrated sheaths in them, so you can actually put like two swords, one in each one of his shoulder pads. If you saw the Deadpool custom that Emil posted recently, it used the new swords and the new shoulder armor. That's part of the sale. So that'll give you a good example. So what I want to talk about tonight was the mice kits that I created. So rolling back the clock a little bit to talk about this, I got this idea last year at some point. I think it was last year. Now we definitely released our first ones last year. So I think it was at some point early last year that I got the idea that I wanted to make mice characters, but I didn't want them to be goblin sized because I felt like mouse warriors would be smaller. So looking at a Goblin Legion builder figure, I said, how could we engineer parts that would be different? And you think about like the dwarf figures. So the dwarf figures in Mythic Legions, they use, smaller lower arms, smaller upper and lower legs to create that smaller statured character. So in the spirit of that, I was looking at a Goblin Legion builder, and I've got parts of one right here. And, breaking it down and looking at the component pieces, what I thought to myself was, we've got these lower legs. If I pull off the lower legs, and I'm going to snap this back together, I said to myself, if I pull off these lower legs and I expose that peg there, I thought about it and I said, well, the bottom of the leg itself ends in a similar peg and it plugs into the foot. And I was like, what if we just get rid of that lower leg and just plug the foot directly into where that knee is? Now, it's going to change up the articulation a little bit, but it's going to make these characters much, much shorter. Similarly for the arms, if we unplug that lower arm, that gauntlet in that hand, and just plug a hand right in there, that's going to make much smaller limbs. So that was the idea. And honestly, the first one I did a mock-up with it where I took like a Mezco hand and I popped it on. I took some other feet and I popped it on, and I snapped some pictures of it and sent it to Walter DeMarco. And I said, hey, Walter, this is my idea. This is kind of what I want to engineer. I sent it to Len and I said, Len, this is what I'm looking to do. What do you think? And everyone thought it was a really cool idea. We didn't know how it was going to work, And it took a fair amount of back and forth to dial in the parts. But once we were done, we had something that was super cool that created a whole new scale in Mythic Legions. One of the things I love about Mythic Legions is the diversity of sizes. The fact that we've got the standard size figures, the skeletons and the barbarians and the knights, but then we've got, the elves that are about the same height, but thinner. We've got the goblins that are smaller in stature. We've got the dwarves that are between those two. Now we've got ogres, and then we've got trolls, and then we've got brute scale figures coming that are somewhere between ogres and those 1.0. So we've got this diversity of sizes. But I wanted something even smaller. I wanted to go smaller with the mice. So doing these kits was our way to do that. And the first ones that we showed, I'll show you right here. Find the pictures of my mouse knight. So the mouse knight was the first one we showed off. And this was right around Legions Con last year. We debuted these around Legions Con last November. And the minute we showed this off, it just took off. People absolutely loved it. I mean, outside of my original Kitsune Fox parts, this is by far the most successful series that I've been able to work on. I had a blast doing it. It's super fun. I love painting these characters. And it seems like everyone who gets them enjoys it as well. So the first set we did, it had, that standard mouse head, the mouse hands and feet, and then it also had like a mouse little helmet head. So we thought that was kind of fun. And I'll show you the way that it works. It's really simple. Is you can see here that I've got this Goblin Legion builder. So all I did was I heated this figure up. I pulled off those lower arms from the gauntlets and the lower legs. I exposed those pegs. So what happens is the mouse kits, when you buy them, and you can buy all these parts separate, they have these little feet. So we've got a couple different kinds of feet. They're the same general sculpture. One of them has a little bit of armor on top of the boot. One of them has no armor. So I use the one with armor for more knight-like characters. I use the ones that are just boots more for thieves or stuff like that. So all you have to do is literally just plug the foot right in here. A little bit of heat on the foot, never a bad idea. That always helps soften it just a little bit. So if you saw my video this past weekend about using a blow dryer to dry paint, I also use it for applying heat. So I'm going to apply a little bit of heat to these right now. Doesn't need much. I just want to heat them up ever so slightly. And then all I'm going to do here is I just plug these feet right into these pegs. Now, one thing I do, and I've learned this just from doing it, when you pull off that bottom leg, the peg is probably going to be going back a little bit. That's the natural position of the peg when you have these legs on. What I do is before I put the custom foot in, I move that peg forward. So if you're holding the figure like sideways like this, that peg that I'm looking at right now, that's probably in like the 5 o'clock position. I find that works best for putting these in because I prefer to move the peg before the custom foot is in than while it's actually there. So again, just plugging that right in, and then you've got just those little booties, those little feet that are on there. The hands are even easier. So the hands, there's a couple different gloves. Now, originally we had done gloves. They're a little bit of a gripping glove. They're not made of flex. At least the original ones weren't. Some of the new ones we're doing have some flex to them. But if you can't fit, you put a little sword in there, sometimes a little dab of blue tack on the inside of the hand will help hold the weapon. That's always easy to do. We did the armored ones first. Now we've got some new hands coming out that are more expressive. We've got some that are like spell casting, and I've got some others coming as well. This particular one coming up has holding hands that are armored, holding hands that are just, leather gloves, and we've got like the expressive casting hands. So all I do here, I don't even need heat for this. Just plug this right in. It fits perfectly. It's really, really snug. Little pop fit, snaps right on. And then you've got those little lower hands. So super, super cool. Very easy to put together. I'm going to show you some other examples that I've done here. And let me check the comments off. Let's see. I did say dwarves. Has anyone tried to add a forearm or extra shin to the leg to get an authentic? Yeah, I've seen some people that do those style legs, for like wolves and stuff. Do a Reaper Cheap. Yeah, Reaper Cheap was one of the inspiration for the mice. A lot of people ask me if I've ever seen Mouse Guard or what's the other one they always what's the other one they always refer to besides Mouse Guard? I'm drawing a blank now. There's two mouse type things that everyone always refers to. Mouse Guard is one of them. Can't remember the other one. And I always tell them I've actually never read Mouse Guard, and I've never read what the other one is either. I can't even remember the other one. I'm waiting for someone to hit me up in the comments with it. I was more inspired by a book called The Tale of Despero that has a mouse that wants to be a knight. That was part of my thought process. And the character of Reaper Cheap from Chronicles of Narnia. Redwall, that's it. Redwall is it. I've never read Redwall either. I think I've bought one and just never got it. Never got into it. So that's one of the cool things. So besides that original mouse head, we've done a number of other ones. So when we did that first mouse head, we also did one at the same time that actually had, let's see, let me find it here, that had a hood. So the hooded mouse, we were able to do more of a ranger type look. This uses the exact same principle. Those boots, these are the unarmored boots, those plug right in there. Those hands plug in. Just a little hooded head with a little cape to create a ranger-like custom. It gave us a nice little bit of range to have these different types of characters. What I realized as I started doing this is these characters had so much personality that after this first wave, I started thinking about other types of mice characters that I'd like to do. And that's what led me to this most recent wave. Building off that same samurai head, now I'm starting to combine different ones. So talking about samurai, I do very much like to do samurai type customs. So this is one that I did again with that hooded head. I needed to do a Fury mouse, right? I love my Fury clan, had to go and do a Fury mouse. So I did this one. This uses the armor from an articulated Icons Samurai. If you've seen some of my older videos, you know that I went through a period where I used those. They were super cheap. I bought a ton of them and I used them on a lot of customs. My supply is almost out. I've got like 3 left, I think, and then I'm done. But I did one on this, super cool. I actually cut the bottom of the samurai armor. It came down a little bit further. It came like right down to the ground. So I cut it a little bit just to get a little bit of extra clearance so I could do this character. But I also did an alternate version of this one. Let me show you the alternate version using the regular head. Someone said they did a Mouse Templar custom. I haven't done one of those yet, but that's a super cool idea. So this was the alternate version of the Samurai. I wanted to do one that had more of that like Kabuki style face paint on it. So I got to use both heads with this particular custom, both the hooded head and the Kabuki. This was one I actually didn't show before Legions Con last year. I brought it to Legions Con as a surprise piece and just kind of dropped it in the case and let people discover it. So that was kind of fun. Another example of something that I did when I started doing the mice, I started thinking about other kinds of mice I could do. And of course, 3 blind mice, someone mentioned that. So the idea of the 3 blind mice was something that I thought was very, very fun. So I actually did these 3 customs. And you're going to see about how I've taken the blind mice to the next logical kind of place later in the show. But this is another one where by combining those different heads, by doing the hood on one, doing the regular head on the other 2, I was able to get a couple different mice. These are my 3 blind mice thief type characters. My phone is blowing up, so I don't know what what everyone's messaging me about. And there is Eric. Eric telling me I was muted. Thank you, Eric. So very, very cool. So that was a bunch of the ones I did. We also did a fun one. So around the holidays, we did, of course, want to do some fun stuff for the holidays. So what did we do? We did, let me find it here. Obviously, we did the Christmas mouse. So the Christmas mouse or the Chris mouse, we did that, which is just the regular mouse head with the Christmas hat on. We thought that would be a lot of fun to do as well. That's a little kind of walk down memory lane at the mice that I had done prior to this recent one. So seeing how popular they were and how people wanted to use them. And the mouse kits actually gave birth to the gnome kits. So the gnome kits that I know Curtis is super excited about, those have been really popular as well. And they use the same principle where they use these little feet, these little hands, and, in that case, they use, gnome heads. One of the things that I didn't realize when I first did the mice is the mice all have 3 fingers. So when we made the gnomes, that meant that gnomes had 3 fingers. Now, I don't know if gnomes are ever depicted with 3 fingers. I think they're usually depicted having, 4 fingers and a thumb. So what we did for some of the upcoming hands is we did 2 versions of them. We did both 3 fingers and 4-finger hands. So I tell people that because like this coming Saturday, we have the new hands coming out, the more expressive casting hands. If you want to do a gnome custom and you're like, well, I wish the hand had 4 fingers, but I'll take what I can get. Don't feel like you've got to buy those. We have some more gnomes coming out as well. We are in the process literally right now of working on the next series of gnomes. Once those gnomes come out, we're going to release new hands for them that have actually 4 fingers. So up to you. If you dig your gnomes having 3 fingers, then you're all set this weekend. But thinking about the new mice we were going to do, the first one that I came up with was one that I love that I'm going to paint another version of tonight, and that was the plague mouse. So let me bring this up. I showed this off on Monday for the first time. Where are you, Mr. Plague Mouse? Here he is. So I thought that I call him Plague Mouse. Dead Mouse was the original name that I had in my head. Thinking of different kind of mice I could do, Dead Mouse popped in my head, and I'm like, that would be really kind of fun. And I was thinking about this right at the end of the year, around the time that Poxus had come out. So I got it in my head that I wanted to do a mouse that very much looked like Poxus, right? The idea, I mean, these are supposed to be mice, not rats. But heck, you could use this as a rat if you want. If you want to make this a black plague carrying rat, you absolutely can do that. So it's interesting because when I worked with Walter on this, the first version he did, it was more disgusting. Like it had, like some more bone exposed. There was a part, he said it wasn't brain, but it looked like brain to me. And I didn't want to go that way. Like I didn't want it to be a zombie mouse, even though it kind of looks like a zombie mouse. I wanted it, just like Poxus, to feel more like it was infected and it was dead, but that it wasn't like a stereotypical zombie. I was like, I don't want an eyeball hanging out. I don't want brain showing. None of those design cues do I want to go for. So we actually scaled it back. We kind of rolled it back. Some of his first stuff he did were a little too gross. Even he did one that had the fur that was a little crazier, and it looked like it was whiskers. So scaling it back to where it is now, I'm super, super happy with it. And it is pretty gross. Like he's got these big bags under his eyes. Like his eyes are big and puffy, which is super fun. He's got all these boils and stuff. You can see that, his ear is kind of like chewed up. The other air is going to chunk out of it. And you can see the expressive hand there. Those hands were made to be casting hands, but they also work really well as waving hands. So every time I position any character with them, I literally can't help but take a shot of the character waving, which I think is tons of fun. But Plague Mouse was the first new one we worked on. So, of course, what I thought about the plague mouse, the dead mouse, being like Poxus. And that's how this one was painted. This one was painted to be very green like Poxus. Because in the official Mythic Legions lore, the Circle of Poxus is opposed by the convocation of Basilia, I said, you know what? I want to do, if this character, if you ever notice, when I write my bios, I never put him in any official factions. I do that for a reason, because I don't want there to be any confusion. These are all custom parts. None of this stuff is official. None of this stuff is canon. This is all me having fun with my friends. So I do try to avoid ever saying like this character is part of this faction or stuff like that. However, clearly, if this character was in Mythic Legions, he'd be hanging out with Poxus, right? He's disease. Similarly, the character that would oppose him, I would imagine, would be one of the wizardly scholars of the convocation of Basilia. So to that end, we did the wizard mouse. I do see some comments coming in. Give me a minute and I will go through those. Bringing up the wizard here. So here's the wizard mouse. And this one, I'll kid you not, I thought the plague mouse was going to be the more popular just because it's creepy and fun and weird. This one, absolutely, people loved it. People absolutely loved it. Len, WolfKingCustoms, he said it's because it has a hat on. And if you know anything about Len, he loves his customs that have hats. You may not have realized this, but the amount of Wolf King custom parts that have a hat of some kind is staggering. You may not have noticed, you will notice now, Len is obsessed with hats. This mouse has a hat. It's also got a beard. It's funny because when I first talked to Walter about the design for this, I kind of imagined it like being a really shaggy like mouse, and like the overgrown fur and kind of whiskers almost making a beard. And when he actually gave me the part, it looked more like a mouse that had a beard on, almost like tacked on. I mean, it's well done, but it does not look like what I imagined. But I loved it. Like I saw it and it looked so ridiculous and silly that I just made me smile. And that's what this is all about. This is all about having fun, doing these customs, playing with toys. This is all about having fun. This thing was fun. It brought a smile to my face. And I said, you know what? If I think this is fun, I bet you other people will as well. So I totally went forward with this as is. Absolutely dig this one. All the customs I'm showing are using Goblin Legion Builder bodies, by the way. I'm almost out of Goblin Legion Builders, so we'll see what's going to happen there. Now, the Plague Mouse and the Wizard Mouse, those are both going to be available for sale this coming Saturday. Unpainted parts, all separately. I will be painting a very small number of parts as well. Speaking of painting, let's do a little bit of painting right now. So let me get set up over here. I'll read some comments while I'm getting set up. Let's see. Okay. Who's been eating his ear? Goodness knows. Yeah, Joe, say I was going to buy the 3-fingered hands for my gnomes. If you dig it, go ahead and do it. But there are 4-finger ones coming. We've got one that's just like the one you saw there that's fully flayed. There's one that's just got kind of like 2 fingers out. And then there's like a holding hand as well. Yes, Kevin, we will be releasing the gnomes. We are working on them. It's some cool stuff. I actually roped in some friends to contribute some gnome designs. So these are not only coming out of my head, and Walter's doing all the sculpting as always, but we got some cool stuff coming, and some other creators going to get a chance to get some of their parts out as well. So that should be a lot of fun. Okay, let's see. I'm going through the comments here. Thank you, Kevin. Hit the like button. I'm horrible at asking people to do that. This is what happens when a Subway mouse eats pizza. Can we get a mouse head with the mouth open like a battle cry? I haven't considered that, but that's a great one. I can absolutely get that done. I like that idea. Am I familiar with Dead Mouse? I know there is an artist called Dead Mouse, and that's why it popped in my head, but I don't listen to that type of music, so I've never heard Dead Mouse, but I do know Dead Mouse exists. He also wears that big, cool mouse thing on his head. It's kind of neat. No, not lizard mouse, wizard mouse. Very cool. Yeah, a lot of people compare it to mouse guard. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do a few things. So number one, I am going to put on a second camera. Me in stereo. So I got a second camera there. The reason I'm doing that is so I can move this camera over here. And let's see. There we go. Okay, so now I did the wrong camera there, so let me share the right camera. Extra camera. There we go. Okay, that's what we wanted. All right, so now you can still see me there, but you can see what I'm doing here as well. So what I've got here is I've got, hopefully the light's better. I've got some light. I know last time I did this, the light wasn't great. So I've got just a copy of the dead mouse type head here. So the first step, what I did with these is these just came in gray, kind of, printed color. I hit it with my white spray paint. So my white Krylon, both the green one that I did and this one. I'm going to keep this one white, actually. I wanted to do this one with more of like the red eyes. The last one, all the boils, I want to do the boils on like a yellowish type color, yellowish greenish type color. So I think it's going to pop more on the white with those big red eyes. It'll look a lot more infected. So I think that'll be a lot of fun on this one as well. What is the contraption? This is literally just something I use to like hold different pieces. It's got these little clips and stuff so I can hold different parts if I have to paint it. It's literally, it's got a light, but the light doesn't even work anymore. Okay, so very good. So first thing I'm going to do here, I'm trying to look at what I want to do here. I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a very, very slight wash on this. So I'm going to put a slight bit of gray paint here. Just a little bit of gray. And what I'm using here is a Vallejo light gray. And then a little bit of white. And now, give me one moment. I'm going to put a little bit of dab of water in there. Oh, I got some water right here, so I'm just going to put a tiny, tiny little dab of water. Perfect. Now, the only reason I'm doing this little wash here, is just so it's not as stark white. By doing the wash, what this will do is this will actually get, into some of those crevices to give this a little bit more color. So I'm just going to paint this whole thing with this wash. And again, a wash is really, it's almost like the anti-dry brushing, right? Instead of me drying the brush off so there's very dry paint on it, it's the exact opposite where it's very, very wet paint, where you're just slobbing it on. And what's going to happen is when it dries, it's going to get, instead of on the surface areas, those surface areas that you get with dry brushing, it'll get all at the crevices and stuff. Now, my new trick, again, I mentioned earlier that I said I did a video this weekend about using a blow dryer to dry the actual paints. Something I had never done in all my years of customizing. Started doing it more recently after seeing everyone at the studio do this. So That's what I'm going to do. I've got my blow dryer. I'm going to put it on the lowest ear possible. The heat, I go mid-range, but the ear pressure, like the amount of air is the lowest. They're all nice and dry. Yep. So it's cool. And it's the effect that it gave me. It's interesting because it's very, very spotty, but I like that for what I'm going for. It just gives me a different look. Okay. So let's see what else I'm going to do. I did drop by. So I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take off the glasses and I'm going to start painting some of these like pustules, all these big pussy type, I don't know what to call it, bumps and everything he's got. So looking at my colors here, I'm going to go with this yellow ochre to start. And I'm going to use a very fine tip brush for that here. And the nice thing about this sculpture is, and I have my glasses off so I can't see comments, be aware. When you paint parts from artists who really know how to do this, the details are, they're pulled out enough that it makes it so much easier to paint. It's almost like you just need to let the brush find those areas and it does it for you. So just painting those little tiny dots here. He's covered in these little dots. And all I'm doing is just directing the paintbrush onto those pieces. And see these yellow pussy type bumps. These are going to be like so much more. They're going to stand out so much more than the greenish ones did on the green Poxus-like looking design I did. Because that was like green on green. There's a lot of them. And I'm going to add some variation to them later. I'm going to start with all this one base color, and then I'll add some later. Maybe I'll do some that have little white heads on them, because that's pretty gross, right? And then I'll do some that maybe have some green going on. Oh, there's a bunch in back, too. There's also a bunch in the ears. The ears work nice as little handles. I use those to actually hold as well. Okay. Looks good. So you can see there's just all these little pustules that are all over this thing. It's pretty gross. It's pretty nasty looking. He's got some around his lips too. Very cool. Okay. Check my comments real quick. Let's see. Nothing like watching paint dry. Yeah, I don't imagine them. So I don't imagine them being the size as regular mice because, if you compare them to other Mythic Legions figures, they're not. I mean, they're not that tiny. I just imagine anthropomorphic mice characters being smaller than other anthropomorphic characters. Braku Prime, I do not use an airbrush. Okay. So let me dry this really quick. It doesn't take much. It really doesn't. That blow dryer works quickly. So what am I going to do? I don't really have a super detailed plan for this, so we're just going with the flow here, seeing what happens. So for those eyes, I definitely want to do them red. So let me hit a little bit of red in here and get those eyes done. I think that's really going to make this pop. Now, I will say this. One thing about eyes, I guess we'll just do this. Whenever I paint eyes, I find that I really want like a nice smooth application. Be bold. Go in there. Don't hesitate. Get some paint on that brush. Hit that circular type eye, that rounded eye piece, and just let the paint fill it. Okay. Where I find I mess up on eyes is when I question myself and I start to kind of like try to do too much. And then if you start painting while it starts drying, that's where you get that nice, you don't get that nice smooth application. So be bold, go in there and just get that thing painting. That's what I'm going to do right now. So I dip my brush in that red paint. Just follow the curves of the eye. The sculpture will show you where to paint. A good sculpture that's got the details really dialed in, your brush will be able to just glide over those areas and it won't bleed where it doesn't belong. How creepy is that, huh? And that guy. He is looking creepy. Okay. Pink. One of those colors that I don't use a lot of, but in this case, exactly what I need. So I'm going to do a little bit of pink around the nose, or I should say on the nose, and then I'm going to do a little bit of pink in the ears as well. So for the ears, what I'll do is I use one of these smaller flat brushes. So this is those tester packs that I really like a lot. This is the size 2. So get that paint. This is dry brushing. So really drying this off. And then I'm doing this right here in those ears. what's interesting is these particular ears, these have all of those kind of, bumps and pustules in it as well. So there is a point where I'm kind of painting over those. It's not a problem. I can go back on top of them after. And this is subtle, just as this to get a little bit of that paint in there, a little bit of that color. Now, obviously, I'm kind of, sprint painting this for the sake of entertainment. I'm doing this for all of you. In a real world setting, I probably wouldn't be painting this at this speed. I'd probably let stuff dry naturally a little bit more than I'm doing. But it's okay. It's working. Go back to my fine-tipped brush here. It's got a little red on it, but that's not a problem. Pink and red, they're close enough. Now, this is a point where I really do have to concentrate. Having painted these nose parts enough times, gotta pay attention to what you're doing. But again, all the details are there. If you just steady hand, hold your breath, let the brush find the parts. Let the brush just find those pieces. Okay, here we go. It's looking good. I like it. Let's add a little green. Just gross this up a little bit. So I'm going to add a little bit of green to some of those pustules, to some of those bumps. Not all of them, but just a few. The ones around his mouth. Be cool. I like that. It's working well. So let's try this a little bit. Let me take this brush. Actually, I got a new brush. I'm going to really dry off this green here. I'm just going to do a little bit of dry brushing green underneath the eyes there. Right where those bags are. Just bring that sickly color in. Just being careful not to get those big, nice green red eyes. I like that a lot. That looks good. Yeah, so the way that the dry brushing dried, it's really blotchy. It's kind of an accident, but it's working for me. Like it just looks gross. For the teeth, I tend to use this color here, which is buff. So this is Vallejo 976. This is buff. And I just take my brush again. And those two little teeth he's got right in front there. Just very carefully, one at a time. Paint one and bring it down. Because there's a nice gap between those two teeth, and I want to maintain that gap. I don't want to get paint. I don't want paint to leak into that gap. I've had it happen before. I usually just take an X-Acto blade and kind of scrape it out, but I want to maintain that gap because it really adds to the detail of those teeth. Put it on its side and paint the sides of the teeth, underneath the teeth. go. Now, the other thing you can do is all of these bite marks, we can have some fun with those as well. Let's go back to that green. I don't know what caused those bites, but let's dab some green in that area right there. I don't really know why, but it's gross. I've been painting a lot of toxic looking characters lately, so I guess I'm on a kind of green slimy type kick. Just putting those green and those big bite marks. That looks cool. That's different and weird. I like that. Just taking a look at all the parts I've done. See if there's anything else I want to touch up. Any other colors I want to do. Maybe a little bit of white. Where's my white? Like one or two of those big bumps have a big giant pustule like whitehead on it. That's gross. Okay. So I made a little mistake. So I overdid it a little bit on his face there. So let's see how I recover from this. I'm going to blend that in with my hand a little bit. I'm just going to own it. Just going to own it right there. Come back. Let's paint those dots again. So it does definitely have a little bit of a weird bump in front, like a little bit of a weird color, but I'm just going to work that in. I'm going to figure out how to make that part of the design that I'm going for here. Let's go back to the comments, see what people are saying. Mark saying, I'm sitting here telling my kids to be quiet while Jeremy paints. It's okay, Mark. I can't hear them. Yeah, Curtis saying, be careful to keep the dryer low and moving so you don't melt the paint. Starting over after putting in a lot of work is no fun. Absolutely. I only hit it for a very small amount of time. So what I did was I went back to my first color here. So I'm back to that first like wash that I did, and I'm just going to dab a little bit of that just to minimize some of that look that I had in front there with that. Knowing how to recover from little things like that is part of the process. I'm looking up here. It's part of the process. You know, We all like to show our successes. We all like to show the final results of the work that we do, but there's a lot of little mistakes that happen along the way that we've got to figure out how to recover from that to get us there. And it's all part of the journey. It's fun. So it makes it worthwhile. And this is fun too, because when I started this, other than the red eyes, wasn't 100% sure how this was going to look. So it's fun to be able to do this and to learn, to figure out with you exactly what the end result's going to be. So now what I've just done is add a little bit of that wash color back. Now I'm going to repaint some of these dots, some of these bumps. And that actually looks really good. I'm really excited about this. This came out well. So I smoothed in that color so it's not as obvious. And there we go. Just got my little guy here. I like him. He's pretty gross. He's pretty nasty. So let me move this around a little bit. So first things first, I'm going to shut this camera off. And I'm going to move this one back. There we go. And we're back, right? And the sound's on. Sound is on. Awesome. So that was a fun, just little paint session. Just kind of wanted to have some fun today, showing some of that stuff. Quite honestly, I wanted to paint this head this way. And I've been so busy, I hadn't had a chance to do it. And I wanted to show the mice tonight. So I said, you know what? Let me talk about the mice while I actually do a little bit of live painting. Now, one thing I would do on this one that I'm not going to do this evening is I would use this. So this Model Masters clear acrylic. This it's 4638 gloss clear. So this is, I did a video on this, but this is what I love to use on things like the mice's teeth and the mice's eyes. Whenever I want to provide that glossy type color, I don't use glossy paint. I just paint with, my normal acrylic paints, and then I use a little bit of this. What I have found with this, and I've said this many, many times, whether you're using a blow dryer or not, I always try to give it 24 hours before I apply any of this on top of paint. I have found that this actually will ruin the paint. I know my friend Curtis did not heed this this instruction at one point, and he used this way too early, and I believe he messed something up. Curtis, I am remembering correctly, right? So I always like to wait 24 hours just to play it on the safe side. But what I would do is I have a brush that I use specifically for that. I would just go in, and it goes on super wet, but it dries clear, it dries transparent, but super glossy. So giving the eyes, giving the teeth that glossy type look, that's going to really kind of make those shine. When you see a lot of the photos and those particular parts are like shiny, that's the trick. That's exactly how that works. Let's see what else going on. Tester's brush pack. Yes. So I can also show you it right here that I literally have it in a box. So I get these on Amazon. I've gotten them a number of places, but I get these on Amazon now. I can also post a link to them, but it's just a tester's 3-pack of brushes. It comes with a size 10, a size 10, a size 8, and a size 2. So it's the flat brushes. I love these. They're not expensive. They only make $10 for a 3-pack. I use them all the time. Another cool thing that you can get on Amazon, when I show the mice, I don't always show them with tails. I actually got this. So this is a box. This is a bag, excuse me, full of mice. Full of mice. So it's all these little rubber mice, right? This entire bag was like $13. There's like 40 of them. So what I plan on doing is I plan on using my X-Acto blade to pull off the tail of one of these mice. And so I can just twist it off right here. Well, what I plan on doing is pulling off that tail, and then some people still don't know this, but here we go. On the 2.0 figures, literally all the 2.0 figures, they have a little boom boom cover. It is a little piece. If you lift up there on their, under their waist armor, if you lift up, there is actually a little cover right there that if you get your finger under it and just pull, it pops this little boom boom cover out, this little flap, and it exposes the hole. I've told this story before, but it's a funny one. It's worth saying. When they were developing the 2.0 figures, when they did 1.0, they didn't make it have a hole. And it wasn't until they did like Borear and Balam that they realized, hey, we actually need a hole there to put the tail. So on the 1.0 figures, there's 2 different waist pieces, some with the hole and some without. For 2.0, they were like, hey, let's just make the hole so we can always use it. When they got in the first samples, they realized that every character had a boom boom hole. And they were like, well, that's probably not a good idea. So they had the factory engineer these little plugs that go right in. And I've seen many Mythic fans who have collected for years, pulled these things apart, who still don't know. They've discovered recently that those little things exist. But if you pull that out, this little tail, I'm gonna cut this off. I'm gonna just glue that right in there, and then I'm gonna have just a little tail. Oh, come on, let me pull it off. Oh, there we go. So I pulled off. I didn't get as much as I wanted. I ripped it a little bit too low, but you get the idea that just a little bit of glue right in there, and you'll be able to have that mouse tail that's kind of coming out. Just plug it up there right now. Little mouse tail. That'll be cool. So I wanted to do that. A couple people asked us why we didn't produce mice tails. Honestly, to print little thin things like that with resin would have been problematic. So something like this, I think, is a really, really good option. Eric's saying, my painting voice is so soothing, especially while you're painting at the same time. So Curtis, you're pushing for goblin bodies. I mean, I'm trying to think. Well, the Goblin Legion builder was the last one to sell out during the reinforcement sale. So y'all should have jumped on that. There was a lot of them there. They were available. There are still some. They'll be appearing at upcoming shows and stuff. Thank you for all the kind words. So you have to stock up on these. I told everyone. I said there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming. Stock up. Those bronze dwarves and those Goblin Legion builders. Those things are gold. Gold for critters. Curtis, saying that he ruined some eyes by glossing over them. The top coat has disappeared off the face of the earth. Has it really? I honestly bought this so long ago, and there is so much in here. I cannot imagine I'm ever going to run out of this. I honestly, I use this all the time, and I barely made a dent in it. It's not even past like the little label. here. So I don't imagine I'm ever going to run out. I need more gnomes, need more goblins. Yeah, so Eric's saying that he can't find it anywhere. I've never tried the Tamaya Clear Glass, so I can't say from experience if it's good. This one was recommended to me a while back by Nikki, and so I grabbed it at the time. I'm not aware that it's not available anymore. It's interesting because Eric LeBron messaged me right before showtime and asked for a picture of this, and it was interesting because I had it here on my table. One more thing I will show you before I go. So the one mouse part that I haven't shown yet, we've got the plague mouse or the dead mouse coming this Saturday. We've got the wizard mouse coming. There is one more mouse that I did at the same time. Won't be available for sale yet, but I just finished painting one up today and I wanted to show you. Remember I said that I did the 3 blind mice. Well, I didn't think of the idea of blind mice when I did the first mouse set. So I just used the mouse figures for that. And when I did my 3 blind mice, and let me bring that image up again. Let's see here. So when I did these 3, you notice that it's 3 characters, but 2 of them share the same head. So the 2 on the outsides, they use the same mouse head. So I like the idea of all 3 characters, each having a unique, distinct head. So what I thought would be fun was to create a new head to go with the blind mice. And of course, if I'm going to create a blind mouse, it made a lot of sense to make a mouse that has a blindfold, right? I thought that would be kind of fun, like a bandana around his head. So the custom that I put together, again, I do a lot of stuff based on samurais and Japanese culture and stuff like that. So there is a series of Japanese movies based on a blind swordsman. The blind swordsman in the movies doesn't wear a bandana; he's just blind. But taking some design cues from that, it's called like Zatochi. I'm sure I'm saying that incorrectly. Let me bring this up right now, and I'll show you my latest one. I literally just finished this before showtime and just took these pictures. So here we go. This is my blind mouse. So this is a head that will be available soon, just not this Saturday. And it's super fun. It's basically the standard mouse head, but with the addition of that, that little blindfold on. In the kind of Japanese samurai movies that this is based off of. He carries around a cane sword, so I kind of gave him that kind of look, and he's usually dressed all in black. Of course, once again, I used my Kylo Ren scarf because I'm a creature of habit and I can't get enough of that part. But fun head, I really dig this one. Showing it off here for the first time this evening. And actually, I've got him because, like I said, I just did it right before showtime. So I've actually got him right here. It's a fun little guy. So very cool. I dig having them all together. I dig having the mice all together. Actually, check this out. Let's go on bear with me. It's going to get a little shaky. So let's see what you're seeing here. So this is actually where, let me open this up. This is actually where the mice all are. You can see them actually all on display. Get some light. This is not going as well as I would have hoped. But that is where the mice all are. They're really kind of fun to have all on display together. You can see the blind mice, the plague mouse there, the samurai. Cool stuff. I dig it. It's a little bit of a tour. And we're back. Very cool. I've shown a couple of the mice with a walking stick. The one that I just showed, that was a Mezco sword. The only stick that was done. So you know what? I think I know what you're talking about. Hold on a second. Let me bring it back up. If you're talking about the stick that he's holding there, that staff, that kind of like bow staff, that is actually from an articulated Icons samurai figure. So that is not a custom part that's available. Wolf King Customs did do this stick, the TB's Goblin Slayer. This works really, really well, and this would fit, in the mice hands. I don't know if this will be available in this sale, but it will be back. It will be back soon for sure, if not this sale. I like this one. I actually gave this to my badger type character. So that walking stick is available. And it was positioned where it's kind of like when you're a little kid, you find a stick in the woods and it becomes a sword. That's what this is supposed to be. It's kind of a stick that resembles a sword. It's based on a funny story that Travis, actually from the My Wife Is Going to Kill Me podcast, told. When are the weasels coming out? So if you saw the weasels in the case as well, those will be out in a sale pretty soon. I've mentioned that I've been holding them back because there's no 2.0 bodies out there. Like the weasels are meant to go on 2.0 bodies. No one's got elves. Like no one's got those elven type bodies to put them on. So I don't want to release them and people not be able to use them. So I honestly have been waiting for the War of the Aetherblade builder packs to hit, because once those elves are available, I think that will be ideal bodies to use those. So that's why I've been holding back the weasels. The Gandalf looking one. The one that Gandalf was looking, that's honestly, I don't even know where I got that. That's something that's been in my fodder bin forever. That just stick. I don't even know where it's from. It might be an old Lord of the Rings thing, to be honest with you. It's definitely not a 3D printed part. Yeah, so Drew's asking, yeah, that's what that one is. Yeah, I didn't, McFly, when I came up with the mice, the weasels were meant to be the villains in the mice series. I didn't want to go cats because it felt too on the nose. And there are already cat characters in Mythic Legions, and other 3D creators have done cats. So Planetary Dog Toys have done a whole bunch of, panther and tiger type things. I didn't feel like I had anything to add to that. So rather than do cats, that's why I said, well, what other kinds of, animals, what other kinds of characters would be a predator for mice? And weasels were what I came up with. So the weasels have been done for quite some time. I actually brought them to Legions Con last year. They were in the case. I dropped them in the case at Legions Con last year as well as a surprise. So they've been done forever. It's just waiting for the right time to release them. Very cool. So I do have a few minutes left. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you for joining me this evening. A little impromptu after the last two episodes, doing some interviews. Great feedback on that. I definitely thought that it would be fun to bring it back to customizing a little bit. One thing I will point out, great time to be a Mythic Legions fan with all the content online. If you haven't checked out this week's Legions Lounge with Trevor, Bill, and Nate, they had a really great guest this week. Actor from Ozark was on. Very, very cool, interesting conversation to hear. That perspective from another toy fan. Also, Legion's Lair, always very, very fun. They interviewed Cullen last night. full disclosure, I haven't watched it yet. I was very busy last night doing some stuff, so I wasn't able to catch it live. So it is on my to watch list. But I'm sure I always enjoy that show, so I'm sure it was a lot of fun. Let's see. Yeah, Vampire Mouse would be cool. At one point, after doing the Paxos mouse, I jokingly said that I should do all 4 of the Dark 4 as mice. So I could do like a vampire mouse for Alithia and like a big fiery demon mouse. Yeah, that'd be fun. A skeleton mouse. It would be cool. I may still do it. We'll see. Yeah, Cullen's collection. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I'm sure that it was absolutely ridiculous. Drew, I can't wait to see you do some work on the dead mouse. I'm sure you're going to do an amazing, amazing job. Anything else? Any other questions? Hi, new to Mythic Legions collecting. So I'm looking for a site where I can get bodies or fodder, where I can buy things little by little. Don't. I'm telling you, that way you're going to spend so much more money. I used to do that years ago. I would go on eBay, and if I just needed, a head, or I just needed arms, I would buy the arms. You're going to pay $20 for a pair of arms or a pair of legs from someone that breaks it apart. You are literally better off just buying the entire figure. Even if you pay $50 for that figure on Big Bad Toy Store, it will serve you so much better in the end. The only place that's really doing fodder parts, and I haven't looked for them in forever, there were people breaking them apart on eBay. Again, I don't want to kill anyone's sales, but in the spirit of trying to protect customizers, I think that's not the way to go about doing it. I think you're going to spend way, way more money if you do it piecemeal like that. You're better off buying full figures, throwing the parts you don't need in your fodder bins to use for later. Okay. Yeah, the intern for a day lottery. Thank you very much, Curtis. That is a good point. That closes next week. So we are 1 week in. We opened it up last week. You can go to sourcehorseman.com/intern. That'll bring you right to the form that you have to fill out. If you fill it out, you are not obligated to actually purchase tickets should you win. Just like if you fill it out, you're not guaranteed to win. I will tell you that the interest level in Intern for a Day is unreal. It is unprecedented. It is considerably more than we expected to get. So the idea of doing a lottery was clearly the right choice. But 1 more week on that. We will close that next Wednesday. And then shortly after that, we will draw the names, contact the winners, and hopefully have our class of 2022 interns. Yep. Curtis, thank you. Doing all my news for me. Yeah, Trolls still available. I mentioned that at the top of the show. I meant, you know what? Maybe that was when my mic was off. Who knows? Yeah, Trolls are still available. No, Eric, the +1 does not pay. So the ticket, the $300 ticket for intern, includes a guest. So you can bring a person with you. You can bring 1 guest with you as part of your ticket. The only thing I will point out is any gifts that are given at Intern for a Day are for the interns. So if you've seen the past interns, you've seen that we do busts. Those busts take a really long time to produce. Doing one for every single person there is not feasible. So they're only for the interns. So what will happen is if you are an intern, you will get one. You can either paint it there, or some people choose not to paint them. Your guest will not get that. There are other things, like we do the pins, the 4-H intern pins. We give one of those to everybody. So the guest doesn't cost any more, but they are genuinely there as your guest. Walter, nice to see you here. Anybody else? Any other questions that I can answer for you? You've got a few minutes. I'm happy to do so. Just gonna look at this guy. Man, he's kind of gross. He's more gray than I expected. I expected him to be more white, but I kind of like him being gray just because my blind mice are like genuinely white. So, and there's uh my mask, my blindfolded white head that I'm gonna paint later for my blind mice. Yeah, I brought this guy out too. So this is the Badger custom. Actually, the Badger head is going to be, I call it the Badgerine because I painted it as a Badger and a Wolverine. Those will be back available in this Saturday's sale as well. Dragon. Well, I mean, all I can tell you is they have expressed numerous times that they have the desire to do a dragon. So it's just finding the right time to do it. You're very welcome, Braku. I'm happy you enjoyed the show. A little drink time. How many of you, when you do customs, do you just find yourself just kind of staring at them, just looking at them? I love doing that. There'll be times where like I close down the workshop and then I put the lights back on and I just pick it up and look at it again, check out the details. I do think it's helpful to put them down and come back to them in the morning, or later in the day, whatever. You see them with fresh eyes, but I enjoy doing that. I just enjoy looking at it. I mean, you do it because you like it, right? You do it because you love it. That's why I do it. Enjoyable. For shows like the one that we will be at in Connecticut on Saturday, will be your limit on what people can purchase. Yes, there will be. So anything that we bring that is an older item, it's always limited to one per person. We do not want somebody to come up to the table and buy, I don't know if this character is going to be there, so I'm just going to say a name because he was at the last one. At the last Toy Con we did, we had Brother Mandibulus. Brother Mandibulus is a very desirable figure. We don't want the first person in line who knows that to buy 24 of them, wipe out the entire case, and then somebody behind them not get it. So any of those figures that we don't have a large quantity of, there's going to be a limit of one per person. This show will be a little bit different than Toy Con and so forth because Toy Con is literally right down the road from the warehouse. So if we run out of stuff that we actually have more of at the warehouse that we want to get, we can go back and just get some. We won't have that option this time. This event is an hour and a half from the studio, so no one's driving back to the studio to grab more product. What we've got is what we've got. We're going to have a decent amount of stuff, but it will not be we're not bringing the RV. When we do Toy Con, when we did ZoloCon, we drive an RV there and fill it with product. This will be less, and there will be limits. We are also going to do something different this time. And we're going to make some people very happy and other people very upset. We do shows and we see fans that travel far to come to the shows. And they wait out in line, and they're first in line, they're third in line, and they get into the building, they get up to the table, and there's 20 people in front of them, 30 people in front of them. And they're vendors. And it's a hard thing because some of those vendors are fans. Like those vendors are fans of the line. They just happen to be vending at the show as well. And they're already in the building, so they don't have to wait in line. They come up right to the table. It's always hard. We do limit, like what we did at the last couple shows was any of those rare figures, we only put half of our stock on the table. And once the vendors got rid of those, we didn't put any others out until the fans from outside got up to the table. We tried that to see if that would help, but obviously people still miss out. So What we are going to start doing is we're going to start making sure that the people in line are the first ones that get to the table. So I'm going to say this, we're still figuring out exactly what the process is, but if you go to the show and you're in line outside, we're going to do what we can to make sure you get first crack at the table. If you're a vendor and you come up to the table, we are going to ask you to wait until after the people that are outside in line, that have been outside in some cases for hours, get a crack at that table. Again, I said we're going to make some people happy, going to piss off some other people, going to upset some of the vendors. There's no way to make everybody happy, but this is what we think is probably the best course of action. I see a lot of vendors that come and buy stuff for themselves. They're not flipping it, they're not reselling it. They want the figure for themselves. But there's also others that are toy vendors that aren't into the line, that know it's hot. They come up and they literally are like, which ones are worth money? Which ones do I buy? We want to avoid that. We want some of the fans to get it. And after those fans have gotten through, there's still a ton of great stuff there. People can have at it. The vendors can have at it and stuff. So we're going to try this out for the next couple shows and see how it goes. Oh, let's see. You're welcome for the info on the brushes. The worst line, yes, they did sculpt those first couple waves of worst figures, the worst ultimates. The Horsemen did do those. Dan, we are not going to have a list outside and take money. We're not dealing with that. It's going to be at the table. We've got to record everything, so it's got to be inside. Awesome. Yeah, hopefully it'll be better. Hopefully it'll work well. With that, I'm going to say goodnight. I've got a lot of stuff to clean up this evening, so it's going to take me a while. Thank you very much for joining. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. If you are coming on Saturday, I look forward to seeing you. I will be there with Jim all day, talking Legions, selling Legions, meeting fans. Should be a good time. Really looking forward to it. A lot of other cool stuff on the agenda as well. PowerCon. We haven't talked about PowerCon at all yet. PowerCon is coming up in August. So the troll wave ends on the end of June, basically. The beginning of August is PowerCon. All I'm going to tell you is get ready, because July is going to be a fun month as well. We're not slowing down. This is going to be an amazing year for all things Four Horsemen Studios, and I'm going to help bring it all to you here on Mythic Conversations. Thank you very much. I will see you next week for another Mythic Conversation. Same Mythic time, same Mythic channel, and I cannot wait for that conversation.